360, spiral the neck like a vulture goddess. Milky Way patterns and the energies I harness. In my mindset, I'm high as the sky gets. Multiple sunsets, capturing thoughts with a butterfly net. Cause true reality runs deeper than the concept. To the spectrum of your consciousness, your pigment's only context. This race can only be won if the psyche is steady. Even Frankenstein began as a dream in the mind of Mary Shelley. So throw caution to the wind, focusing the mental element. Make walls crumble down like dilapidated settlements.
Welcome back to the Hip Hop African Podcast. We are doing a special series of episodes that are being recorded live with African Studies students from Howard University and George Washington University. We are teaming up for this series with Words, Beats, and Life, which is also live streaming the episodes on Wednesday evenings on their Facebook page at facebook.com/Words, Beats, Life. You can find the full schedule on our site, hiphopafrican.com.
Good afternoon, everyone. Peace, peace, peace. My name is Mikal Amin, hip-hop artist, educator, cultural ambassador, and today we are at the Hip Hop African Podcast on the virtual campus of Howard University in George Washington. This is a dope, amazing podcast that looks at many different artists from the continent, and it is being sponsored by Words, Beats, and Life. And I'm excited today because we have a ridiculous MC. Yugen Blakrok was born in a small town in the Eastern Cape and debuted on the South African hip-hop scene around 2003. She moved to Johannesburg, the heart of South Africa's music industry, around 2008. She released her first album, Return of the Astro-Goth, in 2013, and Anima Mysterium, which contains a cameo by the one and only Chuck D, in 2019. In 2018, this is where you might have heard some of y'all who have been sleeping a little bit. She featured on the track Opps with Vince Staples and Kendrick Lamar on the Black Panther soundtrack, but she's been doing it for a minute. She is an amazing artist. I want to thank her for coming today, and we're going to get into it with Dr. Clark interviewing Yugen Blakrok. One other thing really quick for everyone. We'll be taking questions at the end. We'll take some questions first from the Zoom, but those of you out there on Facebook, definitely keep up. If you have any questions, we'll definitely try to get to those as best we can as well. And I'll be asking those. For those inside the Zoom, just raise your hand and we'll call on you to basically ask those questions. So without further ado with that, take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to get a chance to talk to Yugen. So, and I actually said this, I think last week with Kanye, that when you meet someone and then like after an hour of talking, it feels like you've known them for like a really long time. I think we sat at that restaurant that very first day and just like talked about a whole lot. And then, so it's like, it's always nice when you meet an artist and then there's, you connect on a human level, on the level of African women and on like all of these other different levels. So I'm definitely, happy to have been able to kind of see your career and, be a fan since, really the first album. And there's several questions, and I want to definitely give students the time or the opportunity to ask most of the questions. So I'm just going to ask a few, and I know we've talked before. So in your style of music, I was looking and just trying to think of like the style and like, because I don't think you can really put it in a box, but I know like the first album cover made me think of this kind of like Wu-Tang Clan-ish type of like very esoteric, like just, and so I've heard your music described in many ways, but I think most important is you didn't have this kind of stereotypical boom-bap style. And one of the things I think that's also really amazing, because, the first week we had Gigi Lemaine, then we had Kanye Mavi, and now we're interviewing you. 3 South African women, very different styles. I mean, all 3 of you are very good lyricists, but just very, very different. And so, and so it's just definitely interesting that there is that space that you all have created within the industry. Because I think a lot of the times there's pressure, especially outside of the States. And I know in Tanzania, definitely, that there's this pressure to kind of fit this cookie cutter image of how you should rap, and this is how you should dress, and this is how you should. But I also know in South Africa, there were other artists, like Eavesdrop, who goes by Mercury Metronome now. Like, she was one of the first artists that I heard that wasn't kind of following that. So I want to find out, I guess, what your experience was getting into hip hop, and did people like really understand, or were they able to, kind of feel what you were doing with the music? Or was there pressure for you to, no, you should do this and you should have this, boom bap hip hop beats? So what was your early experience getting into hip hop in SA?
Nice. Okay. Well, first, hi, everyone. Hi, I'm Sia. Thanks for the intro. To jump straight into it, I've always found hip hop to kind of have, you've got it. It's got its own guidelines and its elements, and within that, you've got heads who can sometimes act like gatekeepers, because we're human beings and ego is involved. So it would, starting out, there would always be that, more of a leaning towards the conscious side of hip hop, or how it was viewed at the time. There's always been a sort of beef in between that, the underground and the mainstream, or conscious rap, or just, rap for the industry, if you want to call it that. So they've always been kind of these opposites within the genre itself. So when I came in, of course, I find like guys are more often than not trying to tell you how to sound, or who you sound like, you should try this, or also, unfortunately, from my experience, also women in the same mindset, this is how you should dress, this cookie cutter type of image that's going around. It's always been there, as soon as I think women started to show, not started to show interest in owning, but finding ways to kind of own their image, whether it was a more sexually forward or whichever way they wanted to express. As soon as that started, it kind of became this is what is selling, and therefore to kind of make it, this is how you should go. The formula that's been tested and is working is what's always going to be pushed on you. So yes, in my experience, I did find that. Also in South Africa, we've also gone through our debates around language as well. As an MC that spits in English versus an MC that spits in isiXhosa or Tswana, or a mix of English and etc. So we've gone through that. That involves identity as well. So I think from the time I started rapping up until the first album, which is about a 10-year gap, this is like all the experience. You go to the sci-fis and you experience not being able to go in, or you go to a hip hop session, it takes like 5 hours to eventually get on stage. Nobody knows you. And the fact that you are a woman does affect people, within the culture. There is misogyny, all challenges that you can think of in different industries. It applies to hip hop as well, obviously, because it's a reflection of where society is, of our mind state collective. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, all the stereotypical things you can imagine. Yes, studio time, if you have to go and record something and you pay up front, and there's advances, or weird sexual things, or a violation of space, something as light as, just giving a pound to everybody. Hey, dap, what's up? And then because you're the girl there, you get a really tight crotch hug or something like that. You know what I mean? You don't, that's not what you're really there for. But, sometimes you can be made to feel like an other within this culture, So of course, these experiences, you try to find ways around them, to try to speak about them as well, or at least speak about how you feel within that state without letting you, without letting it control how you move.
Now, one of the things that, just in listening to what you're saying now, and then, you know, kind of what Kanye said and what Gigi, and then I interviewed Dope St. Jude like a couple months ago, and it's these very similar kind of narratives about what the experience is like, and the sexism, the sexual harassment, and I think being a woman in hip hop, whether you're an MC, DJ, like whether you're a creative or whether you are a fan or whenever you're in hip hop spaces, there is this like, there's this kind of, there are certain things, I don't want to say that you have to accept, but there's certain things that we have put up with. So I don't want to say we accepted that we had to put up with. Yeah. And you find your way around. Yes, exactly. And so I think that even with this whole Me Too thing or it's hip hop was just like, no, thank you. And so it's like you're still kind of having to navigate that. But I feel like in South Africa, because Gigi described South African women in terms of activism as gangster, and like they're very outspoken. And so I'm wondering how much that coming out of that, coming out of the protest culture, coming out of spaces where women have been very vocal about things, also kind of translated into helping, because you don't see that a lot in other countries. So South Africa has like a significant number of women who are active in hip hop, but I feel like there's more kind of women kind of pushing through, not asking for the mic, not asking permission. Do you feel like that South Africa's, that the culture of that has also maybe helped in that sense?
For sure. I definitely think so. With the past as well, like a whole nation of people being oppressed and taken from, and all of this, it really, also with women, if you're going to oppress the man and he oppresses the woman at home, this is pretty much how it goes. So you are finding that it's not just in hip hop, but in all spheres, really, there is a surge of I'm not taking this anymore. I'm not asking anymore, because it's gotten to that level, really, where things are extreme. You really do have to act. If you're going to act, you really go for it. And also, you can't really talk about gender-related or anything without mentioning the violent aspect of it, in a domestic sense as well. So there is that, there are those extremes. I think South Africa has its extremes in every way you look at it, whether you're looking at the class system or racial things or economically, this big divide. And this divide also exists between the genders, within everyone. There's a lack of good communication because of all the trauma, Mm-hmm. Folks are really still dealing with things individually in their communities as well. And this is a steadily growing thing. And I feel like, from the women that I've been around and happened to meet, we're not waiting for things to sort themselves out. It's already taken this long to get, you know what I mean? And I feel like also from women and men around my age as well, you're aware of the time that it's taken since 94 until about now is over 20 years. You know what I mean? And if you're looking at, whether you're looking at it socially or politically, you can see that change is really slow. So that I feel like that kind of explains that sense of urgency. If my girl Gigi's on me like, yeah, that's gangster, I kind of feel like, yeah, I see it. I feel it myself as an individual. I feel it from my sisters. I feel it from people that I meet in general. We don't have to come from the same area of South Africa to kind of know what's up,
Yeah. So then, okay, one of the things in terms of your, again, kind of going back to your music is there is... So because I feel like you don't necessarily have to be writing songs that are like we are women, we are, so your music doesn't, but I think in its kind of not saying it, it says it. So you just kind of do your thing and you're not like, oh, I have to, twirl my hair and do this video. So do you feel like that? I guess there are two questions. Do you feel pressure ever to kind of like explicitly represent the female voice or perspective? And then because your style is, in terms of like mainstream industries, whether you're talking about South Africa or the US or wherever, they are checking for some, whatever they're doing. Did you feel that like with a lot of artists that they had to like leave to go to other, like to Europe specifically? Where there may be kind of more room in terms of when it comes to eating. So you can do what you want in South Africa, but can you eat doing what you want to do? So do you feel that has also kind of, that you've gotten more opportunities, I should say, in Europe?
Okay, great question. Let's start with the first, the feminine aspect. Earlier on, getting into like hip hop culture, KRS-One's voice is always in my head. Hip hop is not what you do, it's who you are. There was always that hooked me into it. The idea that I could be anonymous, I could spit the poetry, and it's got nothing to do with gender. It's all on skill. From that school of thought. So that was already for me convincing enough that I could take it as one of my convictions. So years later, when I do get into the industry, because for years before, we were just operating underground. If you want to call it that, you do what you like, when you like, exactly how you like. You don't have any spotlight on you. Therefore, there's nobody really trying to tell you this and that. I mean, they are there, but it doesn't affect how you're living. You're not getting paid, etc. And then moving into kind of checking out what the industry is like, you can see there's a lot of pressure from folks who are used to working that way. You know what I mean? I get the feeling that also because of the hierarchy of it, I don't think a lot of people question, because it's the bottom line is the bottom line. The difference between the industry and the space within which I work, I'm not working for money. The bottom line doesn't apply to me. So I'm not feeling pressure when I write. This is how I've always done it, It's just that circumstances have changed. Hello, Black Panther and all, But, things have changed, but I don't have to. This is what works for me. So I do find that there is that conflict. There is that pressure. I see it also with other artists, that I do look at, some that I do admire, to learn, what does the industry do for you? Is it worth it to change what you're doing to fit in there? What are your goals in all of that? The industry was never part of the list of priorities. It's a tool for me. It's a way for me to, like you said, be able to eat. And of course, there's differences in South Africa and out here in France or in Germany or Switzerland. Their machine is well oiled. Ours is still new. You know what I mean? The pie is smaller, and we are a lot, and all we're going to do is fight for crumbs. And the way that we're raised is that it's your world, thank you, Naz. So automatically I'm thinking, this is not all I'm gunning for, surely. So really on a worldwide, in a world scene, that's where I'm going to want to be at, because things are a bit more advanced, for sure. It works. I want to live and see myself doing art and being successful at it, being able to live. I'm the first and oldest of 4 kids. I'm the one who went the art route. So for my personal goal, it's to be able to say to my younger sisters and brother, hey, whatever it is you choose to do, just do it well. I didn't come into hip hop with a whole lot of support from the family. I had to prove, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. That this is better than that degree and. Yeah. And you know what I mean? And it's tough as hell to do that. Like there's millions of talented people in the world, and a tiny percentage of them even get to be comfortable, let alone rich. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, there are those pressures, but I personally feel like I've got my own goals, which have sustained me this far. Cash must follow. This is, like part of that. I'm tired of waiting and submitting to a system that is not built for me. Let me create my own system. I'll be the trial and error. I'll be my guinea pig. Yeah. And no one is going to push this as much as I am. So really, Yeah.
No, I definitely, everything you said is just kind of seeing the way, one, Black Panther kind of opened some doors, I'm assuming, and it allowed kind of more ears to hear your music. And so, when you released your, Anima Mysterium, it was, I'm assuming it was a difference than Return of the Astro-Goth. And so, so it has, obviously it has helped. But have there been any ways in which it maybe didn't? Like, so I know it was, fairly positive, but were there any things, I don't know, like in terms of expectations, perhaps cousins you never knew about? All of a sudden, like, hey.
What, folks thinking I got $50 million? Exactly. Oh, no, none of it. No, so far, no. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'd say it's brought anything negative in that sense. I mean, like, no, it hasn't. It's been positive in terms of, like you said, more ears listening. It's done tons of promo I would have never afforded to do on my own, for sure. It helped me launch an album that was in the works. It literally happened at the perfect time. You know what I mean? I couldn't have planned it. There's no way I could have. And so running with that has only just brought positive things. There's a whole lot of folks who flocked, I imagine, to wherever my music's at, and they're like, I'm expecting maybe this, a bit more Black Panther sounding stuff. And they get there and it's super chilled and slow and maybe not what they're expecting. Of course, there was plenty of that, but then the action in itself was like casting a net. Man, the people that resonated with the music, I don't know if I would have ever been able to reach. So just that has been, I really can't say much negative stuff.
Yeah, it did. In getting ready for this, I kind of went through the lyrics, the verse on Black Panther, and then some of the songs on the latest release. And it's definitely more of this kind of mental, like your later, like, I guess even with Return of the Astro-Goth, there's this kind of like journey you take. You go deep, and you're kind of looking these references. And I do remember when I listened to Return of the Astro-Goth, because I remember having to write articles and stuff on women in hip hop. And so in looking at your music, I think even in the book, I've got an excerpt like as an example in terms of rhyme styles. But I remember kind of looking up these different references, and I was like, and so there was some, and I can't actually remember the exact line, but there were some references that were really specific to South Africa. There were some that were kind of these universal, we are humans in this space type. There were some that I feel like, depending on the headspace you're in, it almost feels like you're like on this same level or mental kind of wavelength. Like, so sometimes, if you're kind of like I don't even know how to describe it, but I think listening to specifically the one that you did the video for, and I think it's the one that we used the picture. I don't want to say the wrong name of the song, but and I'm trying to look it up while I'm talking, but it was I listening to it. I just kind of found myself like dealing with stuff here, the COVID, just a whole, being Black, listening to it. I just kind of felt like you're going on this like mental journey. And it's not just kind of like one of those things where you just bop your head or you just kind of passively, like you can passively listen to it and enjoy it. But I think looking at Gorgon Madonna, that's the song, and listening to it and like really looking at the lyrics, I was like, it just kind of, I think I felt it in a different way other than just kind of something you listen to and enjoy. But it was just like, you felt like, yes, this is this kind of, yeah. So it was on like a whole different level. And I think that while I love the verse on Opps, it, and perhaps because the project was different. So it didn't, it was a different platform. But I think that listening to a lot of your music, it's very easy to kind of mentally get lost in kind of what you're saying. Not get lost, but to connect on a different level with what you're saying.
I hear you.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, the difference, I'd say, even with those, like Opps, I wrote in like a day, in a couple of hours as well, under extreme pressure for somebody whose style I already respected, so I kind of did take a deliberate step away from myself because, it's always good to get out of your comfort zone. And I enjoyed doing that. I found that to be light, with my own stuff. I do take the extra couple of steps, I won't record it fresh off, right when I've thought about it. I still have to work on it, the crafting side of it, the deliberate where the schemes fall and what I'm trying to say, not just one thing, but you listen to it a second time, maybe there's another meaning. Of course there will be, because we're all different and we have these different experiences. And one of the first conversations we had also, you said, you just like put all these different things together that I probably wouldn't have connected in this. And I thought about it also like, okay, yeah, actually I do on purpose as well, because I insist on finding the connection between things. So even maybe I'll have the South African references, like on Neo Veda, for example. I planted these roots under the Transkei sky. So when flowering to shoot through the earth when the rain subsides, at that spot, it was an ode to the Transkei itself. Every artist, a secret shout out to Thandi Soma's wife for Transkei Moon as well. A South African thing, but it's also linked to my physical origin. Yeah. That is just as important as the Venus reference, as the Nordic gods references, Someone else who's had that experience can connect that, you know what I mean? And also with all this racial division, wow, it's tiring, It's tiring, this tug of war constantly, as if we don't have issues already, like just yapping and debating and not hearing each other over these issues is not helping. It's almost like, of course, I want to not have to say I am a Black woman from Africa. And it's obvious, you can see me, why do I have to tell you that? You know what I mean? But what I need for you to understand is that there are differences that we can both respect in each other and act in a way that shows we are aware. That's all that you really need. You don't have to be super best friends, but an awareness and a respect for human dignity. This is like the benchmark, This is where we've gone wrong so many times. When you strip away a people's dignity, you set a whole lot of things out of balance that no amount of money is going to fix. You know what I mean? Apartheid South Africa is not going to be fixed by making a few Black people super goddamn rich, and not put the nation through education. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things. Education does give you that, an awareness of your own intelligence, a set of skills to navigate. You know what I mean? Why are you taking that from people and thinking you don't have to rectify that? So, I mean, there's so many issues that are deep.
Yeah.
And they make me passionate about what I'm passionate about, Yeah. Not everything, but these particular things, because I know them. And in my community, this is what matters. I can't do anything about what's happening in America physically.
Yeah.
I can't. I can't get online and be an activist on the internet. I'm not helping anybody. I got fooled a couple of times with blue squares and black squares. And then after a week, I'm like, I posted this and then what? I don't want us to fall into that trap either when it comes to making actual change. We have to start here with the people that are next to us, that are around us when we're having conversations as well. That's how we move and we grow. I mean, like from my own career, from, rapping in front of 4 people, that shows you to appreciate each person, and that your circle, as tight as it is, it's got to be right. We gotta fix each other, we gotta correct our brothers and sisters. As tough as these conversations must be, they have to happen. Which is why I write everything like all super poetry like and blah. So it at least sounds good because it's coming from some ugly issues, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We can get into that space and talk about it, but we can also learn to be okay. So, you know what I mean? Not be eaten so much by your circumstance. Find a way, see things as they are, and then you move. You can't change something if you don't know what it is. To be avoidant, you're pulling the race card. Yeah, let it be pulled. Let's talk. You're not going to now melt. Let's have the conversation. You're going to feel uncomfortable. I'm going to feel uncomfortable. Hey, that's one thing at least we have in common. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's so much fear. Like at this point, I'm really feeling like, F it. Let's, say it. Just say it.
Yeah. No, that's yeah. I know when the trans guy reference, I actually went and looked it up because I was like, what is this about? And so I found this whole kind of history of sorry. My son's phone has a dinosaur roar, and it happens to be sitting right next to me. So I went and looked it up, and then was so happy that I did, because there was all this, history that kind of was rooted in South Africa that I just didn't know. So I do want to stop because I know some students, I want to give them a chance. So if you have a question you want to ask, you can just...
just reach out, raise your hand. Also, too, we had a comment from Facebook from Tate, and I apologize, Tate, if I'm mispronouncing it. Maku Rumsey, peace and love, Black Rock, hip hop apocalypse alumni, stand up. So maybe that's one of your homies. But we got people out there checking it out.
All right, what's up, Tate?
So, I had a question, if you don't mind.
I do.
Yeah. So when I listen to your music, the first thing that strikes me that I admire is how, you kind of mentioned the mainstream versus the underground hip hop, and that clash almost. And I sense your music is almost a fusion of mainstream and classical hip hop. So I just wanted to know, because there's such a clash, do you ever, have you faced criticism from more classic versions of hip hop? Because your music's really a fusion between EDM and rap, I'd say.
Thank you, Kate. Okay. Well, to be fair, I don't know if any purists have an issue. You know, you do sometimes get a pass because you're a woman. Oh, she raps really great for a girl, that maybe folks will not be as hard. I guess it's a double-edged sword. There are things that work for me, the things that don't. At the same time, I'm aware of who I'm making this for. And it's myself first, obviously, and whoever can relate to it. You know what I mean? It's this whole fishing net situation. Like, I believe your people will come to you. And so my opinion is, if you don't like something, it's not the end of the world, you know? There's like 7 billion of us, and there must be at least 100 times more things that are out there that you could like. As far as the fusion between the two, I do feel like I'm in between different schools. I do admire the old school culture of hip hop with its philosophies, because they make my life richer. And, you know, it makes things easy to understand. It makes communication such a joyous thing to be part of. I can't let that go. At the same time, I'm here and I'm inspired by life and the future that we're living in, and the evolution of sound. And of course, there's some things that I won't like, of course, but there's so many more things that I do like. And I like sort of being in between. You know, the Libra in me jumps out as soon as I see two opposite things. I'm like, yes, okay, how can I find my center in these two? You know, like within yourself, there are all these dualities. So when folks do approach you with a very kind of linear way of looking at things, I can't do nothing for you, bro. You know, that's how you insist on seeing things. Whereas with folks that I have this connection with, folks that do relate to the music, we never have to have these conversations. There is an understanding of what is happening here. There is a reason folks like what they like, you know. I couldn't be bothered, you know. Really.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So we got Ibun next, then Chris, then Bantu, then Lauren. So go ahead, Ibun.
Hi, yeah. So I was wondering how, like, you as a conscious artist, so kind of like artist, but also activist, and you've talked about a lot of deep things here today, even how you kind of cope or go about processing when like change is slow, or like the work that you're doing either isn't fruitful or it's not coming out the way that you want to, and any advice that you have for artists or activists or both on how they might also kind of go about addressing when change is slow or people aren't receiving your message well, or any type of hiccups along.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I make space for misinterpretations, of course, you know. I understand that, like, I love the abstract. I like puzzles. I like to put the dots there to be connected as well. It's, I mean, it's not an accident that, you know, sometimes when you listen, you do have to go look up some stuff. That's very deliberate. How I got into, I mean, the kind of music that I like does that for me, makes me want to go and look for things, you know, because I heard something that appeals to me. I didn't really understand it. And so, you know, the curiosity is something that triggers that. So if someone finds that, I'm happy. When people do misinterpret it, if there is a chance to have that conversation, I would take it, you know. But more often than not, you know, I think the ego in human beings doesn't often allow us to say when we don't understand something. You know what I mean? You'd rather just push away at it. We do have this habit of kind of fighting things we don't understand instead of going into them with a genuine curiosity, you know? Girl, you're gonna have to remind me what you asked me.
Yeah, just kind of like, how do you overcome or how do you process all of that?
Aha. Okay. Thank you, girl. I take my time with it. Like I try to keep a clear perspective. What I'm doing this for primarily is for my own mental health, well-being, spiritual evolution, all of these things to be okay in a world that's not okay. I think none of us can deny that, the world's not okay. So there are constantly things that are going to come at you. And if you're a follower of any, I don't know, spiritual discipline or martial art or anything like that, there will always be that lesson of centering oneself. You center yourself by knowing what it is that works for you, whether it be trial and error and all of this. So I try to keep awareness of misinterpretation, of noise, of things that I can't change. But what I try to change with the work is how I think, how I react to situations. Because a lot of conflict, as much as one person can come into the situation wrong, it still takes both of you guys to be involved in that, So you can be totally right, but the situation between both of you is wrong. Maybe it's the way you're communicating, the way we are and are not listening. Especially on the internet, there's a lot of talking and not enough listening. Everybody wants to feel smart because really we're insecure, and we're hiding behind screens because what else are you going to do? So just to be aware of what's happening around me and to be honest with myself about how I'm feeling about it, about whether I see things as they are and what I can and can't change, acceptance, submission, all of these things. A lot of reading, a lot of talking as well is how I get over it with people that are close to me. I keep a circle of wise women around me that I can call on when I get into a space that is not good for me. I keep people around me that know me and that challenge me as well. So I don't get stuck in my own bad habits, so that I can be able to tell somebody else if they're messing up, because I'm not afraid to hear it from somebody else. And all of that, I think, has to be rooted in love. I don't consider myself an activist, but in love, that is where I will take that title on, act in love, listen with all of this stuff, to each other is where we can make the biggest change.
Chris.
Hi. I just wanted to say thank you for, doing this. It's really amazing to see. I first heard you on the Black Panther album, which I think a lot of people in this Zoom can say. And then I was welcomed to just a whole discography of music. But I just have one question about creative freedom. As a Black artist, I've had some recent discussions with other people about if there should be this unspoken responsibility or obligation for Black artists to discuss or creatively talk about issues that impact Black people. And if so, like, does that take away from the creative freedom as not only just a Black artist, but just an artist in general? Just like, how do you feel about that?
Chris, I'm not sure if I'm getting you right. Are you asking about creative freedom in terms of inclusivity? Is that what you're saying? What do I think about the pressure to either talk about creativity as a Black person or?
I think more of a pressure, not just inclusivity, just any any topic or issue that impacts Black people as a whole, if that pressure or idea from a certain demographic or audience that seeks to listen to
okay,
that sort of thing.
I got you. Thank you for that. I mean, like my first perception of conscious hip hop was that something in the lyrics must be talking about our social situation or something pertaining especially to that, and for, the dope artists who do that as well. But I've also come to appreciate an awareness in the artists themselves, to have the art and have the person being a sort of testament to that in how they're living. You know what I mean? It's hard to not talk about these things because we live them, being Black, a woman, and an artist is something that's going to be talked about at some point or another. It's something I'm going to think at some point or another, and what that means also. I've been seeing a lot of this quote around Nina Simone saying, I can't remember exactly how she phrased it, but how can an artist not be a reflection of the time, And with art, some things can be mad abstract. I like it for that, for its ability to confront something directly and also indirectly. I like science fiction because of that. Like, I find that a lot of science fiction deals with politics, but allows the reader to be immersed enough in the story that they can approach it as a human being, not as a label that society gives them. You know what I mean? So for myself, I can totally relate to whatever creatures Arthur Dent meets on his little Hitchhiker's Guide without having to attach Black, woman, African, all these things that can be used as chains out here. But I can relate to this, And so why can't we do that with each other? You know what I mean? The present times are clearly showing us the imbalances. They're showing us the injustices that we've covered for, that we've allowed, that we've been too afraid to face. They're not new, So in the art that I put out, there is that sense of things from a personal experience. I can't avoid it. I've been judged on these things. I don't have to write the words down, but I do feel like in the music you can hear that there is a certain experience attached to this, whether it's in I guess whether it's in the language with the references I can make, or the actual story behind the song, or any of these things, it's tightly interlinked. I think it's quite difficult as an independent artist to lie and not have any of that somehow appearing in your art, So, yeah, I mean, pressures to speak. Yeah. Pressures to say something relevant and true and authentic. I think that's more where I'm at, and that has no timing when, with respect to the art and the inspiration and the times, when you do have a real thing going, that's my space to put it out. Everything that's happened last year is being filtered into something that I can change into rhyme form that will entertain when you are feeling like shutting off. But at that second, when you want to listen to something, you will find it there, because this is an everyday way of living. You can dissect the lyrics, you can ask what questions, whatever song it is, but there will be traces of it. And like it's tough to live in the times and not be a testament of the times.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
So we have Bantu and then Lauren. So for that's.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Wanda.
Okay, thank you so much. I love the way you speak, and I'm so infatuated by the depth of your thoughts and your perspective about the world and the things that it encompasses, and how you bring that into your music. I found that the lyrics to your music is very psychological. Most times it's very philosophical and very deep, at least when I listen to it. And so I'm curious to know, where does your inspiration for your writings come from, as well as what about your style of music challenges your thinking? And then I also wanted to know whether or not making music is easier or harder in South Africa or in France.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you, Wandu. I hope I pronounced your name right also.
Yes.
The inspiration is really from, I like books, I like movies, I like visual stimulation. So I like the arts, I like dance, I like things that move the body, and a lot of music that I listen to as well kind of is stimulating, well written, and sometimes not, but it's more a sentimental thing. I think I like words, I like the power of words. The fact that you can say something horrible to somebody that you don't know and it will affect them. This is a powerful thing, to think that one can have this effect on somebody. And so if I have a chance to do something great or something heartwarming with words or something intellectually stimulating, this is what I want to do. I enjoy making music. I enjoy thinking about things as well, and discussions as well, to expand the perspective. Talking to people from different walks of life, different ages, from different ages as well, to notice differences. I'm fascinated with the human mind because it plays tricks on us often, it gets your heart broken, your brain, it does all these things, you achieve so much by applying as much as you can with it. And also it's something that can completely turn around on you. We have mental illnesses and all of these things. We're surrounded by it's things that I'm interested in talking about. The spectrum, I'm wondering why we treat people with mental health issues the way that we do. The separation when you see that someone thinks on a different wavelength to you, when your instinct is to shun that away. I'm fascinated by what we can do to fix that. What tools can we learn to kind of evolve, not just your intellectual quota, but your emotional quota as well, Because everything is not just in your head, but you have people who are more mental, there are people who are more intuitive, there are people who need physical affection. There's different ways to learn. I taught English for 2 years online, and I met really awesome people that made me want to travel the world. But there was that connection as teacher and student where I'm teaching some grammar stuff, but I'm learning some life stuff from folks as well. So this experience of feeling at home with strangers is something, that I find invigorating. It's the energy with which I write, whether it's a sad rhyme or a victorious one or any of these things. I really enjoy what I do. What can I say? Okay, remind me again. I'm a bit of a rambler.
Yeah, and my second question was, what about your style of music challenges your thinking?
Well, when I first start writing, I'll put the thought down or the feeling just in raw form, and I'll forget about it for a while and try to do some other things, and then I'll come back. When I get into a writing space, I treat the stuff that I wrote there as like raw material, how I feel, how I really think. It's not in rhyme form or anything. From there, I'll just start to craft the verse, you know. So for me, I'm taking the raw material and crafting something gem-like, hopefully, you know what I mean? So I'm applying this. So with all my thoughts that are right there, I know that I can go and do further research on what it is that I'm interested in. I'm not just going to rely on what it is that I'm feeling, you know? Feelings just pass, but there's a wealth of knowledge, you know? So I'll go read up on quantum physics or some elements of that I need to get my point across. You know what I mean? So this part, this obsessive structuring of things, I like it because it forces me to learn things that I otherwise wouldn't have known. And that's something that I'm kind of secretly sharing with whoever's going to listen. So as much as this is what I want to say, I've expanded it so that someone who hasn't had the same experience can still get the feeling. We've performed quite a bit over the last 2 years in countries where English is not the first language and they don't care for it. And I'm going there with abstract this, and that, and rhyming patterns, you know. And at the end of the show, someone has not understood any of the lyrics. And I don't, as an artist, expect you on a night out at a gig to completely understand like 45 minutes worth of, you know, rhyme patterns. But if the energy of what I'm saying does translate, then I do feel like my job is done. You can always go home and research the lyrics and kind of find the points that you liked in it. But to get that connection right through, you know, without words, but still using them. These are the things that kind of challenge me with my style. And I feel like I'm succeeding when I encounter people like, oh, I'm not a hip hop head, but yo, I really like this, or when you said that, because they went through the whole label thing, you know? You don't have to be a hip hop head to appreciate hip hop, you know? And that's that. And this applies, I feel, to everything. Once the energy is right, it doesn't matter if the labels don't match. The connection is there. So what's the challenge? Well, I guess the challenge is also a great thing.
And then, sorry, I asked so many questions. And then my last question was, is it easier for you to make music in France or in South Africa?
No, it's different. It's different. I've been in France now for 2 years. Before then, I'd written, like if I'm writing my rhymes, I'm writing them, I'm in Joburg, in Yeoville, or in Queenstown, or at my mother's place. Very familiar old places, you know. The last album, Anima Mysterium, was written sort of half-half. We'd come out to Europe for maybe 3 months at a time, do some touring, and then we'd go home, and then I'd kind of, I guess, decompress, like just go through everything, all the experiences, all the different places I'd never been before, blah, blah, and then get into the writing process and structuring something from what I've learned. Okay, so this is fine. I've got a nice general home space. So when we're out here, we're just constantly on go, you know? I'm not at home. I'm not going to sleep in my bed. And you know, you don't feel centered. So I found it a bit of a struggle to work here personally, but that's just a personal thing, just on a creative basis. On a professional basis, it has been easier. before the Black Panther. This is 2018. I first came out to Europe in 2016, and we organized our own shows. But I'm like in 2 months, I had more shows in 2 months than I'd get the whole year at home, out here in Europe, so that's not something I'm just gonna like ignore. You know what I mean? The market is open. The issues are completely different. The industry is different. And although I was excited about, starting over, it was also like, I'm going to move to this country. I don't speak the language. I'm a completely unknown artist. Whereas in Johannesburg, I'd kind of gathered myself a bit of a following, As tough as it was, it worked better professionally. I can survive off it. I can do so many more things. Whereas for creation, South Africa works best, I can completely just focus on the negative stuff and work myself up to be able to speak about it, because it does need to be spoken about, and it's home and it affects me. And no matter how much I live here in Europe, man, I'm here for 2 years. I don't know how long I'm going to stay here, but the issues here don't affect me like that. I'm a visitor in this country, or it's not home. The things from home will always affect me, and I will always be writing from that perspective. So I guess it's been a challenge because it's been unknown territory up until now, but I have no doubt I will find a center and just,
Thank you. Very well said.
Thank you.
And I think lastly we have Lauren.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, thank you for being here. So my question kind of revolves around something you said earlier about having siblings, younger siblings who, of course, look up to you. So I was wondering, what challenges you may have faced as far as convincing your family of your more, I'll say, less traditional career path, and what motivated you to persevere in pursuing a career in music despite maybe the concerns that your family may have had.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, they had valid concerns, really. Rap. But I'm pretty selfish, girl. I think I just used that personal part of myself to there was no good reason to do that. That there was no guarantee. It's not like the concept of school and graduation and getting a job and that kind of security. From their perspective, it did seem a bit like I wasn't serious about anything, and I wasn't secure about what I wanted to do, to be honest. Even at school, I wasn't sure. Folks were applying to universities. I was I didn't know, I wanted to study, but I also didn't. I wanted to travel, but we couldn't afford to study either that much. So I loved writing anyway. So to kind of gear myself up for whatever it is they want to say, I sort of convinced myself, because I'd also been told that do what you love as your job so that you never have to feel like working. They always tell you this at Career Day, right? And I was like, okay, so this is what I love, so it's gonna have to work. But breaking it down to them, I couldn't explain how it was gonna work. I couldn't explain any security aspects of it, and it was difficult. The pressures of it, needing money from my mom as well to support me in the beginning as well. Was rapping for free everywhere, you can't take care of yourself like that. But what motivated me was that I was okay with it. We'd already been conditioned into the idea that being an artist means that you're most likely going to die broke. And for some reason, I was okay with that. I was like, okay, fine. It's not like I've had money all my life, so I doubt this little thing is going to kill me. But the more I worked on it, the more I noticed that my platform started changing, the challenges that used to be so insurmountable became less so over time. And it wasn't a financial thing either. So, until I thank my mom for just having my back as well. My whole family did. They thought it was a bit stupid, but we have love, We're like, try it out. At least, we have love. And my mom did. She was the one person who, as much as she didn't like it, but, mothers and daughters, I won't let you go out like that. She had my back the whole time. So when things did start changing, even from Johannesburg, this, you've got a bigger following or you're getting booked at this place. I can share that with her over the phone. She's not seeing it. She's like 1,000 kilometers away. I'm seeing her once a year. But as long as she can see that I'm healthy, I'm not sick, I'm okay. Maybe I'm not as rich as she'd like me to be, but it's okay. There's still time. This is just the attitude from friends and from family. And coming out to Europe, man, I borrowed cash from everyone, from my uncle, from my sisters, from my mom, boyfriend, everybody. Give me 2,000 rand, to get a plane ticket. And then from there, I was harassing everyone in Berlin. Put me on to your show, because I'd become confident from the love at home, from the love from my friends, from the love from people who didn't know me as well. So I do think that the energy that I went into it with, that recklessness as well, I do think you need to be a little bit obsessive and crazy as well. If your dream is, obviously you have to be as well. That will get you through anything. I've been fired first day from a job because my attitude, blah, all of this stuff, man, stereotypical stories everybody has. But if there's something that you want and you really believe in it and you love it, it's tough for somebody else to not see that, and thank God for good people, because they really root for people who are passionate, It's a beautiful thing to see somebody loving what they do. You can't help but root for them. You know what I mean? Am I even answering what you asked?
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Lauren.
Yugen, it's been super dope to be here and listen to your perspective and learn more about you as an artist and as a person. We really appreciate you spending and taking the time. And I'm going to pass it back to Messia just to kind of take us out. Once again, my name is Mikal Amin. This is Words, Beats, and Life, Hip Hop African podcast. And go ahead, Messia.
Thank you, Mikal.
Really good, lots of really good questions. So I'm happy that students were, able to kind of really connect.
So happy. Thank you, guys.
Hamba kahle ntombazane. Bakuphathe kahle lapha eFrance.
Baniphathe kahle man.
Hayi
And I will learn.
Wenza umsebenzi omuhle. Siyakuthanda.
Long. Yeah.
Long.
Long.
One day ngizokufundisa. Woza uzivakashele eHoward sizokufundisa.
Ndizawuza bhuti yazi.
Ntombazane wenza umsebenzi omuhle. Ngiyaziqhenya ngawe.
Ndiyabulela nami bhuti nami ngiyazidla ngawe.
Ngiyabonga.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and stop the live feed. Thanks for everybody on Facebook who tuned in.
I've been staring at these pages, minds stay purple. Mercury's in retrograde, circles in a circle, what's the purpose? Slanging these rhymes like a merchant, handwritten in cursive. Lately I've been staring at these pages, minds stay purple. Mercury's in retrograde, circles in a circle, what's the purpose?